The stars looked different from New Frontier Station than they did from Earth. Commander Jake Harrison stood at the observation deck and watched the planet Kepler 442b spin slowly below them. The red and orange swirls of its atmosphere reminded him of a painting his daughter had made back home. That was 3 years ago, before he took this assignment to lead humanity's first deep space research station. Jake pressed the come button. On his wrist, all teams report to the briefing room. We have a mission. The crew gathered quickly. Dr. Lisa Carter arrived first, her blonde hair pulled back in the tight bun she always wore during work hours. She carried a tablet filled with notes about the planet's surface conditions. Ryan Mills came next, the young communications officer who had joined the station only 6 months ago. His eyes were bright with the excitement that came with every new discovery. Lieutenant Amy Foster entered last, checking her sidearm out of habit. The security officer never seemed to relax, even on routine missions. What do we have, Commander? Dr. Carter asked, settling into her chair. Jake activated the holographic display in the center of the room. A three-dimensional image of the planets. Northern Hemisphere appeared with a blinking red dot near the polar ice cap. Long-range scanners picked up metal debris on the surface. The composition doesn't match anything from Earth or our previous missions. It's definitely not natural to the planet. Ryan leaned forward in his seat. Could it be from another human expedition? Negative. The metal contains elements we've never seen before. Dr. Carter, I want you to lead the surface team. Take Foster. For security and Mills for any communication equipment we might find? Amy Foster nodded. What's our approach, Commander? Are we treating this as a potential first contact situation? Jake had been asking himself the same question since the scanners first detected the debris. Humanity had been searching for signs of intelligent alien life for over 200 years. Now they might have found it, crashed on a frozen wasteland millions of miles from Earth. We approach with caution. Full environmental suits, standard exploration protocol. If there are survivors, we follow the xenobiological contact procedures. Doctor. Carter's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity. The debris field is quite large. If this is a spacecraft, it was substantial. Any life forms inside would have needed significant protection to survive the crash. That's assuming they're still alive, Foster added. The debris has been there for at least a week based on the scan data. The surface temperature is minus 40 degrees Celsius. The shuttle bay Epsilon hummed with activity as the team prepared for departure. Jake watched from the control room as Dr. Carter ran through her equipment checklist for the third time. She packed sensors, sample containers, and medical supplies into her field kit. Ryan loaded communication equipment and portable computers. Foster checked weapons and emergency supplies with military precision. Bay Epsilon, you are clear for departure, Jake announced over the comm system. The shuttle dropped away from the station and descended through the planet's thin atmosphere. The surface was a mixture of ice plains and rocky outcroppings that stretched to the horizon. As they approached the crash site, the scale of the debris field became clear. Twisted metal was scattered across nearly a square kilometer of frozen ground. Landing in 30 seconds, Ryan called from the pilot's seat. The largest piece of wreckage is about 200 meters from our landing zone. Dr. Carter pressed her face to the viewport. The metal has an unusual shine to it. It's definitely not steel or aluminum. Look at how it reflects the sunlight. The shuttle touched down with a soft thud. The team activated their environmental suits and stepped out into the alien landscape. Their boots crunched on the ice as they approached the main wreckage. What they found was clearly the remains of a spacecraft, but unlike anything humanity had ever built, the hull was smooth and curved, with no visible rivets or welding marks. Strange symbols were etched along what appeared to be the side of the vessel. Foster kept her weapon ready while Dr. Carter ran her scanners over the debris. Incredible, she whispered into her comm unit. The metal is some kind of composite material. It's stronger than titanium, but weighs less than aluminum. These symbols appear to be writing of some kind. Ryan was examining what looked like a doorway. That had been torn open during the crash. Commander, we have an opening into the main section of the craft. Should we proceed inside? Jake's voice crackled through their units from the station above. Proceed with extreme caution. Full biohazard protocols are in effect. The interior of the spacecraft was dark and filled with strange equipment. Emergency lighting strips along the walls provided a dim blue glow that cast eerie shadows. The corridors were wider than human ships would require, and the ceiling was at least 3 meters high. Dr. Carter led the way with her scanner active. I'm reading an atmosphere inside the ship. It's mostly nitrogen and oxygen, similar to Earth, but with higher humidity. Temperature is warmer than outside, maybe 10 degrees Celsius. They moved deeper into the vessel, stepping over twisted metal and strange devices. Ryan's communication equipment detected no active signals from the wreckage. Everything seemed dead and silent. Then Foster held up her hand. Wait, did you hear that? They all stopped moving. In the silence, they could hear a faint sound coming from somewhere ahead of them. It was rhythmic, almost like breathing. There's something alive in here, Dr. Carter said. Her voice barely above a whisper. They followed the sound down a corridor lined with what appeared to be living quarters. The rooms were small but comfortable, with furniture designed for beings roughly human-sized but clearly not human in origin. At the end of the corridor, they found a room with a partially closed door. Foster went first, weapon drawn. Dr. Carter followed with medical equipment ready. Ryan stayed back to provide communication support. Inside the room, they found her. The alien girl was unconscious, lying on what appeared to be a medical bed. Her skin was translucent blue, almost like looking at someone through colored glass. Silver hair spread across the pillow beneath her head. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, with a slender build that suggested youth. She's breathing, Dr. Carter said, running her medical scanner over the girl's body. Heart rate is elevated, but stable. She appears to have several injuries, possibly from the crash. Foster kept her weapon lowered but ready. Is she dangerous? She's unconscious and injured, Dr. Carter replied. Right now, she's more at risk than we are. The alien girl's large violet eyes suddenly opened. She looked at the 3 humans standing over her with an expression of fear and confusion. She tried to sit up but collapsed back onto the bed with a soft moan of pain. Easy, Dr. Carter said, holding out her hands in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. We're here to help you. The girl's eyes darted between the 3 humans. She spoke in a language none of them understood, her voice soft and musical despite her obvious distress. We need to get her back to the station, Dr. Carter said. She needs medical attention that I can't provide here. Jake's voice came through. There come units. Bring her aboard. We'll prepare a containment unit in the medical bay. As they carefully lifted the injured alien girl and carried her back to their shuttle, none of them could have predicted how this moment would change everything. They thought they were rescuing a crash survivor. They had no idea they were bringing aboard someone who would challenge everything they believed about intelligence, compassion, and what it meant to be human. The shuttle lifted off from the frozen surface, carrying its extraordinary passenger toward a future none of them could imagine. 3 months had passed since they brought the alien girl aboard New Frontier Station. Dr. Lisa Carter looked through the transparent barrier at Subject X7, as the military reports called her. The name felt wrong every time Lisa heard it. The girl deserved better than a number and letter combination. The medical bay had been converted into a research facility. Cameras recorded every movement the alien girl made. Sensors monitored her heart rate, brain activity, and body temperature around the clock. The walls were lined with computers that analyzed her every breath and gesture. The girl sat on the simple bed they had provided, working on another puzzle that Dr. Carter had given her. It was designed to test spatial reasoning and problem-solving skills. She solved it in under 2 minutes, faster than most humans could manage. When she finished, she looked up at the observation window where she knew the humans were watching. Remarkable, Dr. Carter said to Ryan Mills, who stood beside her taking notes. She's solved every puzzle we've given her. Her intelligence level appears to be well above average human capability. Ryan watched the girl arrange the puzzle pieces into a perfect spiral pattern, something that wasn't part of the original design. She's not just solving them. She's improving them, making them more beautiful. Lieutenant Amy Foster entered the observation room carrying the daily security report. Command wants to know when we'll have concrete results about her abilities. They're particularly interested in her healing factor. Dr. Carter frowned. The girl's injuries from the crash had healed completely within the first month. Cuts and bruises that should have taken weeks to heal disappeared in days. Blood samples showed cellular regeneration rates that defied human understanding of biology. She's not a weapons project, Dr. Carter said firmly. She's a living being who deserves our respect. Foster shrugged. Tell that to the generals on Earth. They see potential military applications in everything she does. The girl had been listening to their conversations through the barrier. Over the past few weeks, she had begun to understand some English words. Her violet eyes followed their discussion with obvious intelligence. Sometimes she would repeat words she had heard, trying to form sounds with vocal cords that seemed designed differently from human ones. Ryan had started spending extra time in the observation room during his off-duty hours. While Dr. Carter focused on medical tests and Foster maintained security protocols, Ryan found himself simply watching the girl. She seemed less afraid when he was present, more willing to interact with the puzzles and games they provided. She responds differently to you, Dr. Carter had noticed. Her stress levels drop when you're in the room. Ryan couldn't explain it, but he felt a connection to the alien girl that went beyond scientific curiosity. When she looked at him through the barrier, he saw intelligence and emotion that reminded him of his younger sister back on Earth. There was loneliness in those large violet eyes, and something else he couldn't quite identify. One evening, Ryan was alone in the observation room reviewing communication protocols when the girl approached the barrier. She pressed her palm against the transparent wall and looked directly at him. Her expression was different this time, more focused and determined. What is it? Ryan asked softly. Even though she couldn't hear him through the soundproof barrier, the girl kept her hand pressed against the wall and closed her eyes. Suddenly, Ryan felt a strange sensation in his mind, like a gentle pressure building behind his temples. Images began to flash in his thoughts, but they weren't his memories. He saw a world with purple skies and silver trees that swayed in winds he couldn't feel. Cities made of crystal and metal rose from rolling hills covered in blue. Grass. People with translucent skin and silver hair moved through the streets with grace and purpose. The architecture was beautiful, flowing like water frozen in time. Then the images changed. He saw the girl, younger and wearing clothes made of fabric that seemed to shift color in the light. She was standing in what appeared to be a formal ceremony, receiving some kind of medallion from an older being who looked like her but with more pronounced features and deeper violet eyes. The next image showed her aboard the spacecraft they had found, but it was intact and flying through space. She was studying star charts and what appeared to be communication equipment. The symbols on the displays matched the writing they had found on the wreckage. The final image was of the crash. Ryan felt the girl's terror as her ship lost control and plunged toward the planet's surface. He experienced her pain as the vessel broke apart around her, and her desperate struggle to reach the medical bay before losing consciousness. The images faded, and Ryan found himself staring at the girl through the barrier. She had removed her hand from the wall and was watching him with an expression of hope mixed with fear. "You can communicate telepathically," Ryan whispered, though he wasn't sure she could understand his words. "Those were your memories." The girl nodded slowly, and Ryan realized she understood more English than anyone had suspected. She pointed to herself and spoke a word in her own language that sounded like music. Then she pointed to the barrier and shook her head sadly. Ryan understood. Her name was something like Zara, and she was trying to tell him that she couldn't communicate properly through the barrier. The telepathic connection required direct contact or close proximity. Over the next few weeks, Ryan began to piece together more of Zara's story through brief telepathic contacts during his visits. She was young by her people's standards, selected for an important mission that involved traveling to human space. The crash had been an accident, a malfunction in her ship's navigation system, but the most important revelation was that Zara wasn't just any alien. The ceremony he had seen in her memories suggested she held some kind of official position among her people. The communication equipment on her ship indicated that her mission involved making contact with other species. Ryan realized that Zara had been trying to establish peaceful contact with humanity when her ship crashed. She was a diplomat, not a threat. Her people, who she called the Athari in her thoughts, had been watching human expansion into space and wanted to make friendly contact. The knowledge weighed heavily on Ryan's mind. He watched as Dr. Carter continued her medical tests and Foster filed security reports about potential dangers. Meanwhile, Zara sat alone in her containment unit, isolated from any meaningful contact with the beings who held her fate in their hands. During one of their telepathic sessions, Zara showed him images of her homeworld's cities and people. Her thoughts conveyed concepts that human language couldn't express, ideas about harmony between different forms of life and the importance of understanding rather than conquest. Ryan began to document these communications in a private file, uncertain about whether he should report them to Commander Harrison. The military wanted to study Zara's abilities, but Ryan was beginning to understand that she wasn't a test subject. She was a person with hopes, fears, and a mission that could change the relationship between humanity and an entire alien civilization. As he watched Zara solve another puzzle while humming a melody from her world, Ryan made a decision that would change everything. The truth about who she was and why she had come needed to be known. The question was whether anyone would listen before it was too late. Ryan Mills couldn't sleep. For the past week, he had been carrying the weight of Zara's secret communications. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw images from her world, felt her loneliness, and understood more clearly that they were holding a diplomat prisoner. He sat in his quarters staring at the encrypted file where he had documented everything Zara had shown him. The door chimed, and Dr. Lisa Carter entered without waiting for permission. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and her usually perfect hair hanging loose around her shoulders. "We need to talk," she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. "Something is wrong with our approach to Subject 7. Ryan looked up from his computer. "What do you mean?" Dr. Carter pulled out her tablet and showed him the latest medical readings. "Her physical health is declining. Heart rate is elevated, stress hormones are through the roof, and she's barely eating. But here's what bothers me most." She swiped to a video recording from the containment unit. It showed Zara sitting on her bed, staring at the wall with an expression of deep sadness. She wasn't working on puzzles or trying to communicate. She just sat there, motionless, for hours at a time. "This isn't the behavior of a dangerous alien," Dr. Carter said. "This is depression. She's giving up hope." Ryan felt his chest tighten. Through their telepathic contacts, he had sensed Zara's growing despair. But seeing it from an outside perspective made it worse. "Have you reported this to Commander Harrison?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first because you spend more time observing her than anyone else. Have you noticed changes in her behavior?" This was the moment Ryan had been dreading. He could continue to keep Zara's communications secret, or he could trust Dr. Carter with the truth. Looking at the medical data showing Zara's declining condition, he made his choice. "There's something you need to know," Ryan said quietly. "She can communicate, not with words but telepathically. She's been showing me things, memories from her world and her mission." Dr. Carter stared at him in shock. "Telepathic communication? Why didn't you report this immediately?" "Because I wasn't sure anyone would believe me, and because of what she told me. Lisa, she's not just any alien. She's a diplomat. Her people sent her to make contact with humanity, and we're holding her prisoner." Before Dr. Carter could respond, Lieutenant Amy Foster's voice came over the comm system. "All senior staff report to the briefing room immediately. We have incoming ships." Ryan and Dr. Carter hurried to the briefing room, where they found Commander Jake Harrison and Foster studying a holographic display. The image showed several objects moving toward their position from deep space. Long-range sensors picked them up an hour ago, Harrison said without looking away from the display. 5 ships, configuration unknown, but they're definitely not human. They're on a direct course for our position. Foster pointed to the tactical readout. Their approach vector suggests they know exactly where we are. This isn't a random encounter. Dr. Carter felt her stomach drop. Commander, I think they might be looking for subject sex. Harrison turned to face her. Explain. Ryan stepped forward, knowing he couldn't keep silent any longer. Sir, I've been in telepathic communication with the alien girl for several weeks. She's shown me memories and information about her people and her mission. The briefing. Room fell silent. Foster's hand moved instinctively toward her weapon, while Harrison's expression shifted from surprise to anger. You've been in contact with a potentially dangerous alien life form and failed to report it? Harrison demanded. She's not dangerous, Commander. She's a diplomat named Zara. Her people, the Ithari, sent her to establish peaceful contact with humanity. The approaching ships are probably a rescue mission? Foster accessed the tactical display. If they're here to rescue her, why haven't they sent any communication signals? Their approach looks more like an attack formation. Dr. Carter realized the terrible implications. If they think we've been holding their diplomat prisoner, they might consider us hostile. Our failure to establish proper contact could be interpreted as an act of war. Harrison activated the station's alert system. All personnel to battle stations. Prepare defensive measures. Wait, Ryan said desperately. Let me talk to Zara. If I can establish contact with the incoming ships through her, we might be able to prevent a conflict. Absolutely not, Foster objected. We can't trust alien communication methods. For all we know, she's been feeding you false information to lower our defenses. Dr. Carter looked at the tactical display showing the approaching ships. Commander, what if Ryan is right? What if we're about to start a war with a species that only wanted to be our friends? Harrison considered the situation. The approaching ships would reach the station in less than 6 hours. If they were hostile, New Frontier Station's defenses would be overwhelmed quickly. If they were peaceful, humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization was about to go disastrously wrong. Mills, you'll attempt communication with Subject X-7 under strict supervision, Harrison decided. Foster, maintain security protocols. Carter, monitor all biological readings. If this is a trap, I want to know immediately. They returned to the medical bay where Zara remained in her containment unit. She looked up as they entered, and Ryan could see that she sensed something was wrong. Her violet eyes were wide with concern. Ryan approached the barrier and placed his hand against the transparent wall. Zara immediately came forward and pressed her palm against his from the other side. The telepathic connection opened, and Ryan felt her flood of emotions, hope mixed with fear, loneliness, and desperate worry. Through the mental link, Ryan showed Zara images of the approaching ships. Her response was immediate and intense. Relief washed over her, followed by urgent concern. She projected images of her people, showing Ryan that the rescue ships were indeed from her world. But their intentions depended entirely on her condition and treatment. She says the ships are from her people, Ryan reported to the others. But they're prepared for either rescue or retaliation. If they find her in good health and treated well, they'll be peaceful. If they believe she's been harmed or tortured, they'll consider it an act of war. Dr. Carter checked her medical readings. Her stress levels are off the charts. Even if we release her now, her physical and mental condition will show the effects of months of isolation and confinement. Foster studied the tactical display on her portable unit. The ships are maintaining their current course and speed. Number. Communication attempts yet, but they're powering weapon systems. Through her telepathic link with Ryan, Zara conveyed more urgent information. Her people had been monitoring human radio communications and had learned about the concept of prisoners of war. They were prepared to interpret her captivity as either scientific curiosity that went too far, or deliberate hostility toward their diplomatic mission. Commander Harrison faced the most difficult decision of his career. In less than 6 hours, Humanity's first contact with an alien species would either result in a peaceful alliance or the beginning of an interstellar war. The choice depended on whether he was willing to trust the word of an alien girl, who had been treated like a laboratory specimen for 3 months. Looking at Zara through the containment barrier, Harrison saw not a dangerous unknown, but a young being who had been far from home and afraid. The question was whether it was too late to change course and show her people that humanity was capable of compassion and growth. Time was running out, and the approaching ships carried the hopes and fears of 2 civilizations who were about to discover whether they could coexist in the vast darkness of space. General Patrick Cole arrived on New Frontier Station 2 hours before the alien fleet was scheduled to reach them. His shuttle docked with military precision, and he stepped onto the station with the confidence of a man who had fought in 3 interplanetary conflicts. His gray hair was cut short, and his uniform displayed ribbons from campaigns across the solar system. Commander Jake Harrison met him at the airlock, along with the senior staff. The general's first words made Harrison's stomach sink. "Commander, I'm here to take custody of the alien specimen and transport it to Earth for proper military analysis. We have facilities that can extract much more useful information from the creature." Dr. Lisa Carter stepped forward before Harrison could respond. "General, with respect, she's not a creature or a specimen. She's an intelligent being, and her people are approaching our position as we speak." General Cole turned his cold blue eyes toward her. "Doctor, your emotional attachment to the alien has compromised your scientific objectivity. That ends now. Prepare the specimen for immediate transport." Lieutenant Amy Foster shifted uncomfortably beside them. Over the past months, her view of Zara had changed dramatically. The frightened, injured being they had found in the crashed ship had shown kindness and concern even while imprisoned. When Foster had cut her hand during a routine inspection, Zara had pressed against the containment barrier with obvious worry, trying to gesture that she wanted to help. "General," Foster said carefully, "the approaching ships appear to be a rescue mission. If we transfer the alien now, it could be seen as an aggressive act." "Lieutenant, your job is to follow orders, not question military strategy," Cole replied sharply. "The alien has been feeding you false information to make you sympathetic. It's a classic manipulation technique." Ryan Mills felt anger building in his chest. "She's not manipulating anyone. Her name is Zara, and she's a diplomat." "True." "Telepathic communication? She's shown me that her people only want peaceful contact with humanity." General Cole laughed coldly. "Telepathic communication? Mills, you've been compromised by alien mental influence. Report to medical for a full psychological evaluation immediately." Commander Harrison watched the exchange with growing unease. The approaching alien fleet was now only 90 minutes away, and instead of preparing for potential first contact, they were arguing about whether to torture a diplomat. "General, perhaps we should consider the possibility that peaceful contact is in humanity's best interests?" "Commander, I'm relieving you of duty pending a full investigation of how you've handled this situation. The alien comes with me, and anyone who interferes will face court-martial." The crew stood in stunned silence as General Cole's security team moved toward the medical bay where Zara was held. But before they could reach the containment unit, Ryan's communication equipment began receiving signals from the approaching fleet. The alien ships were broadcasting on multiple frequencies, sending what appeared to be mathematical sequences and star charts. The message was clearly an attempt at peaceful communication, following protocols that any advanced civilization would recognize as non-threatening. "They're trying to establish contact," Ryan reported, his hands moving quickly over his equipment. "The signal patterns match peaceful first contact procedures described in our xenological manuals." General Cole ignored the communication attempts and continued toward the medical bay. When they arrived, Zara was standing at the containment barrier, her violet eyes wide with fear and hope. She could sense the approaching ships through her people's natural telepathic abilities, but she could also feel the tension and anger radiating from the humans around her. "Activate the transfer unit," Cole ordered his security team. "We're taking the specimen aboard my ship immediately." Dr. Carter blocked the path to the containment controls. "I won't let you do this." She's been through enough trauma. Moving her now, with her people so close to rescue, is cruel and unnecessary. Doctor, step aside or face arrest for interfering with a military operation. The standoff continued as Ryan's equipment continued receiving signals from the Athari fleet. The alien ships had stopped their approach and were maintaining position just outside the station's defensive perimeter. Their message broadcasts had shifted to what appeared to be requests for communication through the containment barrier. Zara pressed her hand against the transparent wall and looked directly at Ryan. Even without direct telepathic contact, he could sense her desperate need to communicate with her people and prevent the conflict that seemed inevitable if Cole carried out his plans. Lieutenant Foster made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She stepped between General Cole and the containment unit, her hand resting on her sidearm. General, I respectfully refuse to participate in this operation. The alien has shown no hostile behavior, and removing her now could provoke an interstellar incident. Foster, you're under arrest for insubordination. Security team, remove these obstacles and complete the transfer. But Cole's security team hesitated. They had been briefed on the situation during the flight to the station, and the approaching alien fleet made them nervous about escalating tensions. The prospect of starting a war over one prisoner didn't sit well with soldiers who understood the cost of conflict. Commander Harrison realized that the moment of decision had arrived. He could follow military protocol and allow Cole to take Zara, almost certainly dooming any chance of peaceful contact with her people. Or he could trust in the better nature of humanity and make a choice based on compassion rather than fear. Ryan's communication equipment suddenly filled with new signals. The Athari ships were broadcasting what appeared to be images star charts showing the location of Zara's crashed ship, followed by mathematical expressions that seemed to be asking about her condition. They're asking if she's alive and safe? Ryan translated, his understanding of the Athari communication methods growing stronger. They want to know if we've treated her well or if they need to prepare for conflict. Zara began making soft sounds from within her containment unit, calling out in her own language toward the communication equipment. Her voice carried across the room, musical and desperate, trying to reach her people through the electronic signals. General Cole drew his sidearm and pointed it at Commander Harrison. This ends now. Stand down immediately or I'll declare this station in revolt and take it by force. The medical bay fell silent except for Zara's continued calls to her people. Everyone understood that the next few minutes would determine whether humanity's first contact with an alien civilization would be remembered as a moment of wisdom and compassion, or as the beginning of a war that could have been prevented. Dr. Carter looked at Zara through the containment barrier and saw a young being who had traveled across space to offer friendship, only to be caged and studied like an animal. The thought of her being taken to Earth for more invasive experiments was unbearable. Commander, she said quietly to Harrison, whatever you decide, I'll support you. But we need to choose who we want to be as a species. Do we greet the unknown? With fear and violence, or with hope and understanding? Outside the station, 5 alien ships waited for an answer that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. Commander Jake Harrison looked at General Cole's weapon pointed at his chest, then at Zara pressing her hands against the containment barrier. Her violet eyes were filled with hope and fear as she called out to her people through Ryan's communication. Equipment. The sounds she made were beautiful and desperate, like a song that carried the weight of 2 civilizations. General, Harrison said calmly, you're about to make the worst mistake in human history. The only mistake was allowing emotional attachment to cloud military judgment. Cole replied, his finger moving to the trigger. Step away from the containment unit. Dr. Lisa Carter moved to stand beside Harrison. If you want to shoot someone for showing compassion to an injured diplomat, then shoot me too. Lieutenant Amy Foster joined them, followed by Ryan Mills. Even some of Cole's own security team lowered their weapons, unwilling to fire on fellow humans who were trying to prevent a war. You're all under arrest for mutiny, Cole declared, but his voice carried less certainty than before. The communication equipment suddenly filled with new signals from the Athari fleet. Ryan listened carefully to the patterns and mathematical sequences, his understanding of their language growing stronger with each transmission. "They're giving us a choice," Ryan announced to the room. "The Ethari fleet commander is asking for proof that Zara is safe and has been treated with respect. If we can provide that proof, they're prepared to begin peaceful diplomatic relations. If not, they'll consider it an act of war and respond accordingly." General Cole kept his weapon trained on Harrison. "They're trying to intimidate us into surrendering valuable military assets. This is exactly why we need to study the alien more thoroughly." Harrison made his decision. "Computer, deactivate containment field authorization Harrison Alpha 7. Containment field deactivation requires 2 senior officers." The computer responded. Dr. Carter stepped forward. "Computer, confirm deactivation authorization Carter Beta 3. The transparent barrier that had held Zara for 3 months flickered and disappeared. She stumbled forward, free for the first time since her rescue, and looked around the room with wonder and uncertainty. General Cole swung his weapon toward Zara. "Nobody move, the alien is still military property." But Zara was no longer the frightened, injured being they had found in the crashed ship. Months of observation had taught her to understand human body language and emotional states. She could see the fear and anger radiating from Cole and the compassion and hope from the others. She walked slowly toward Ryan, who held out his hand in welcome. When their skin touched, the telepathic connection opened fully for the first time without a barrier between them. The sensation was like hearing a symphony after months of silence. Through their mental link, Ryan felt Zara's overwhelming gratitude mixed with concern for her people waiting outside the station. She showed him images of the Ethari fleet commander, an older being with silver hair and wise eyes who was her father and the leader of their diplomatic corps. "She wants to speak to her people," Ryan announced. "She can establish direct communication with the fleet and prevent any misunderstanding about our intentions." "I won't allow alien mind control on this station," Cole declared. Harrison stepped between Cole and Zara. "General, you're relieved of command. Security, escort him to quarters and place him under arrest for threatening the crew and endangering first contact protocols." Cole's own security team hesitated, then slowly moved to carry out Harrison's orders. They had signed up to protect humanity, not to start wars with peaceful aliens. As Cole was led away, still shouting threats about court-martials and treason, Zara approached the communication console. She placed her hands on the equipment and closed her eyes in concentration. The room filled with new sounds as Zara established contact with the Ethari fleet. Her voice joined the electronic signals, creating a harmony that seemed to bridge the gap between 2 very different forms of life. Ryan could feel through their connection that she was explaining everything that had happened, from her crash to her imprisonment to her eventual release. Dr. Carter monitored Zara's vital signs during the communication. "Her stress levels are dropping rapidly. This is the first time I've seen normal readings from her since we brought her aboard." Lieutenant Foster watched the tactical display as the Ethari ships responded to Zara's communication. "The fleet is powering down weapon systems and requesting permission to approach for diplomatic contact." Harrison activated the station's communication system. "Ethari fleet, this is Commander Harrison of New Frontier Station. We welcome peaceful contact and apologize for any misunderstanding regarding your diplomat. We're prepared to begin formal relations between our species." The response came in the form of images transmitted directly to the station's computers. The lead Ethari ship was requesting permission to dock and send a small diplomatic party aboard. The images showed beings similar to Zara but older, wearing what appeared to be formal diplomatic attire. Over the next several hours, humanity experienced its first official contact with an alien civilization. The Ethari delegation was led by Zara's father, who expressed both gratitude for her eventual release and concern about her treatment during captivity. Through Zara's translation, the crew learned that the Ethari had been observing human expansion into space for decades. They had chosen to make contact because they saw potential in humanity. Despite their tendency toward conflict and suspicion, Dr. Carter presented a full medical report on Zara's condition, honestly documenting both her physical recovery and the psychological trauma caused by her isolation. The Ithari delegation listened with patient understanding, recognizing that fear of the unknown had driven much of the human response. Ryan found himself appointed as the primary human liaison to the Ithari, his unique telepathic connection with Zara making him invaluable for communication between the species. The role felt natural to him, as if all his training in communications had been preparing him for this moment. Lieutenant Foster was surprised to find herself working closely with Ithari security officers, learning about their peaceful approach to conflict resolution while sharing human tactical knowledge that might be useful for mutual defense against other hostile species in the galaxy. 6 months later, New Frontier Station had been transformed into humanity's first interstellar diplomatic center. Zara served as the official Ithari ambassador to humanity, working alongside human diplomats to establish trade agreements, scientific exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. The station's research facilities, once used to study Zara as a specimen, now hosted joint scientific projects between human and Ithari researchers. The technologies they developed together advanced both civilizations by centuries. Ryan often stood in the observation deck where Commander Harrison had once watched the planet below, but now he looked out at a bustling hub of interstellar activity. Ithari ships docked alongside human vessels, and beings from both species worked together toward common goals. Zara joined him at the viewport, her violet eyes reflecting the stars beyond. Through their telepathic link, she shared her hope for the future and her gratitude for the humans who had chosen compassion over fear when it mattered most. "Your people have learned to see beyond their first instincts," she communicated. "That gives me hope for all the civilizations we have yet to meet." Harrison, now promoted to admiral and head of the new Interstellar Relations Division, often reflected on how close they had come to disaster. General Cole had been court-martialed and imprisoned, but his legacy served as a reminder of what could happen when fear ruled over wisdom. The story of Zara's rescue and eventual freedom became a cornerstone of human space doctrine. Future contact protocols emphasized the importance of treating unknown life forms with dignity and respect, recognizing that first impressions between civilizations could echo across the galaxy for generations. As Ryan watched Ithari children playing with human children in the station's new cultural center, he knew that the choice they had made in that medical bay had changed everything. They had chosen to see Zara not as a specimen or a threat, but as a person deserving of compassion and respect. That choice had opened the stars to humanity and proven that even in the vast darkness of space, understanding could triumph over fear, and friendship could bridge any distance between worlds.